Ho, ho, ho. Merry Black Friday. Okay, it's just Black Friday. Christmas isn't here yet. I think we're going to do another Christmas edition, just one for the holidays. It's Backyard Conversations. Tapo, how you feeling?
Doing good. Doing good.
Looks like we skipped a week just then, but I know we're back. We're back hotter. We're trying to do make this one feel like a 2-for-1 special, right? Like a twofer.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
A lot has been happening.
so much. Yeah, it's Backyard Conversations. Let's get it. Okay, so in terms of one of the older, coverages that happened in the past week and a half, PayStack finally got rid of Ezra. So you want to give us some more context for those who don't know what PayStack is and those who don't know what Ezra is or why he was fired?
You say what? And you said got rid of. Come on. So it's kind of like a long story, and it's kind of disheartening as well. For anyone who doesn't know, PayStack is basically like one of Nigeria's biggest fintech companies. It was founded by two guys, Shola and Ezra. Um, Ezra being, he gained a reputation for being like one of the very good developers in the Nigerian tech ecosystem. And he also has worked as a CTO and was the co-founding CTO of PayStack at the time. PayStack had a huge exit a couple years ago, sold to Stripe. And of course, with that, both founders have become basically very wealthy and are considered like celebs in the tech ecosystem. Um, Ezra does have a unique persona in that he has this like appearance where he's pretty alternative in his hairstyle, his clothing style. He wears makeup, he wears nail polish and stuff like that. So that usually makes him receive a bit more attention. And then of course he being as placed as he is, he often shares his views on social issues, including like tech stuff as well, finance stuff, on social media and has racked up kind of a following. Um, so that's basically like the background. I think recently, maybe about a year ago or so, he shared that he was in some sort of polyamorous relationship with two women, and one of them seemed to fast forward to 2025. One of them seemed to be butthurt about something. She went all scorched there, started like talking about some of the stuff that happened between them in private. Again, like I don't know enough to even like go into the details, but all that drama basically resulted in people digging up old tweets. And in digging up some of those old tweets, they saw like really nasty stuff, stuff that,
Disturbing.
yeah, pretty disturbing, stuff that, it's indefensible, it's self-incriminating. There's no like hard evidence, but I mean, someone saying, tweeting, I did this or I would like to do this, all that is kind of hard to swallow. And like, when I looked at it, I tried to like think of what the most charitable angle one can look at this from. And to be honest, it's hard to find. I know that at the time, some of these tweets date as back as 2011, and at the time there was kind of even up until now, so there's kind of like this edge lord internet subculture where people just say like the most crazy things just to get a reaction out of people, and one could say maybe that's the effect it was going for. But then again, like it, like I said, it's self-incriminatory. Like it's one thing to make a joke about something in the third person. It's another thing to like personify it. And then, I don't know what is also like around the people who are around him and if they happen to be on the receiving end of some of those things. So yeah, that's basically the story. So
So you
when all
tried to
that
give him the benefit of the doubt, but you couldn't even get to Bene.
I couldn't get to Benel. you
So
know,
that just came to a head.
yeah. And I mean, again, those who are even closer to him, to the situation, the company, of course, the company has to do PR. They have to do, you know, damage control. So they suspended him, and then I think about a week later, they fired. And you have to remember that the company is now a subsidiary of a company with a much bigger global brand and reputation, Stripe. So yeah, that's where that story is now. I
I
think
think that's
like
worthy of note because there's been some random, allegations in other companies that might still be local, and you wouldn't see this kind of repercussion for maybe a co-founder or a CTO. But I think the international status of Stripe being, the the company behind PayStack now also played a role in getting to this conclusion of letting him go.
yeah, but like truth be told, even if it's just that power dynamics in Nigeria can be very funny, right? But even if they weren't acquired by Stripe, if they do have a board, and they have investors and all that, I still think they could have reached this same outcome because of how gnarly some of the things that came out were. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much the wrap. That's a very concise version of what had happened. So, for people who are not up to speed on what Paystack is, on who Ezra is, I feel like they have a pretty good lowdown right
Yeah.
now. So let's just try and talk a little bit about platform wars. Something more mainstream. We know how pretty much impossible it is to share files, photos, documents between Android devices and iOS devices for the longest time. And Google say they figured out a way to make AirDrop work from Pixel devices for now, and it's something they're looking forward to essentially roll out to other Android devices in the not so far future. I found this very interesting.
Yeah. Like, okay, so have you had to use like an Apple device and an Android device and had to like share stuff between them? And how you do it?
I haven't had two. My main workflow that would see bottlenecks would be from like an iOS device to like a Windows device, for example.
Okay,
So
even someone else's Android device.
that's the thing, though. I don't think I've ever had that problem because,
Okay.
I was thinking about this and I thought in my head, about the Venn diagram of the intersection between Android and iOS slash Mac OS, and whatever. And for me, it seems like it might be much more on the internet than it is in real life. Maybe I'm just not too versed with so many Android and iOS friends wanting to share photos, right? I feel like that's not even anything people do, like airdrop photos to each other that much. Sure, like my airdrop workflow is I'm airdropping files I created to another computer, to
Hmm.
another device, to another tablet. But it seems people are really excited about this, especially maybe Android users who use Macs, right? I feel like
Mm,
that's a very realistic demographic.
yeah.
But when I'm thinking about at the bar and it's like we went out, we took photos. Let me airdrop you. Typically, because it doesn't exist, I think people just default to like WhatsApp, whatever, to send those photos or maybe some other service. But now, obviously, it's going to make it much easier, especially if you have a Pixel device.
Yeah. I was going to say like maybe the reason you don't have that bump of that scenario is because you are pretty locked in to like the Apple ecosystem,
Ecosystem.
and then maybe you don't have like a lot of people around you with like Android devices
I essentially
because
banish Android users from my life, right?
wow,
I
not
kid.
you be discriminatory to the green bubbles.
I
Anyway,
am an Android user. I have older Android devices, and I'm sure none of them are going to support AirDrop. Just to be
nah,
clear,
nah,
yeah.
yeah.
So there, yeah.
One popular app that people use for this purpose is called Xender, Xender. Um, and I've had to use it, even though I do not like the UX of it. It's nowhere near as seamless as AirDrop. Um, then there have been other services. There's one called Local Sense. There's one
Yeah, local
called
send, I've heard of.
Blip. Anyway, so like people have been trying to like get this functionality, and it's one of those things and I know I've said this before, maybe when we're talking about like RSS or something. It's one of those things where I believe it should come as like a protocol on a protocol level, because I'm also curious as to how Google is achieving this. Are they achieving this on a hardware level? But of course, the Pixel phones are already existing, so it's not like they went and built new hardware. Are they achieving this on a software level? Are they spoofing device IDs from Apple systems? I'm really curious. I haven't dug into how it is they're achieving it, and I don't think they have exposed how it is they're doing it. But I think it's a good thing because they're not actually even calling it airdrop. It's their own quick share, but then is now like open to send and receive to Apple devices, which I think is also very good. I think some of the Chinese OEMs too have also like attempted. Um, so yeah, that sort of thing ought to be like an open protocol, meaning wireless offline sharing of data and stuff between devices, and then maybe any extra stuff can now be on an OS level. Um,
I agree. I agree that it should be an open standard, especially now that obviously our pockets are infiltrated with devices, but like in the not so far off future, our faces too, right? And there's just gonna be so many ecosystems, so many operating systems. The last thing you want is a bottleneck and not be able to share something with someone else. Think that, and it also opens up a world because you talk about how I don't have many scenarios where I need to share between Android and iOS, for example. Maybe because it just doesn't work and I don't think about it, you know?
mm,
So maybe now that it works, it's something where, I like effortlessly, I'm on a photo shoot and someone's like, can you airdrop that to me? And they're like an Android user. I
mhm.
could be like, sure, yeah, here you go. Follow up to that is Google's announcement, kind of like text about this, was kind of I think they worded their statement very carefully in case there's a .1 release from Apple that's going to block it, because
Yeah.
they try to drive home the fact that this is with security at its core. That's a direct
Hmm.
quote from Google. So, and they know that that's one thing that Apple always harps on about, and something that Apple's users always expect from them is
Hmm.
privacy, right?
Hmm.
On-device LLMs. That's why Apple kind of sort of still sucks at AI across the board, because they're trying to do a lot of things on device. So it's all about privacy, privacy, privacy first. And so Google's like, yes, privacy security first. And I'm curious to see what Apple does about it, because I'm sure someone at Apple has already reverse engineered whatever Google did in the past week. Someone with the R&D know-how. They've acquired a Pixel device. They've probably torn it apart. They've seen what is working and what is not working, and maybe just, I mean, we'll keep an eye out on beta releases of software. We'll see whichever one comes out that breaks this, if it does break it. And I think it's one of those things where if it does, I don't think it's going to affect the two companies' relationships, because they always have this back and forth, and they have found a way to keep their relationship even though they don't agree on a lot of things. But
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what the future of
There's
sharing on
there's also
Android is.
speculation that um, if if uh, if Apple should block this thing, then maybe either the EU or even the US antitrust can have a case against them because they are like making stuff less interoperable. Um,
Right.
like they are willfully doing it. Like, oh, okay, Android found a way to make their system operate with yours, and then now you're now like going out of your way to block it.
Right. And they will have a huge case in their hands, because it's not just Android, because Apple could always argue that, oh no, we are the minority because there's way more Android phones in the wild. But right
Mhm.
now, it only works on Pixels. And Pixels sell only a fraction of what iPhones sell in the US, in
Mm.
North American market. So Google here is an underdog on purpose, right? It's like, oh, look, Pixel phones. We only sell one Pixel phone for every 15 bajillion iPhones sold. So why don't they let us share our photos and our memories with them? And George is gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, Apple, you suck."
But the thing
Yeah.
is, I mean, knowing Google, if well, Google hasn't been very good at deploying, stuff across their devices, and that's to be honest, that's not entirely their fault because there's such a huge variety of Android devices spread
Mhm.
across, time and release dates and OEM implementation and all that. But it makes sense that if Google were to figure this out for Pixel, unless they want to use it as a selling point to move sales of Pixel phones, I expect that maybe they would want to also deploy it to other Android OEMs, or at least give other Android OEMs the info of how to execute
Mhm.
this quick share feature.
Yeah, I already saw people at Snapdragon, I think, quoting the Google tweet saying coming to Snapdragon soon, right?
Wow.
So so there's already communications in the Android universe about how to go forward with this sharing capability.
Hmm.
Something that Google shared with us recently was like their suite of Gemini 3 products with Banana Pro and everything. And I was like, whoa.
Nano banana.
So have you seen those photos from Nano Banana?
Man, like
So
now seeing a photo of anything on the web or the internet, your first instinct now is speculation, is suspicion, as opposed to, it being the other way around.
I don't know what to make of it because I've seen a direct comparison between Nano Banana and Nano Banana Pro,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure they use a lot of existing photos to train these models,
Oh,
but
definitely.
but if you see how realistic and hyper realistic this looks, when you have like like some imperfections in a photo, let's say you take at a coffee shop and maybe the light in the background is blown out, it's like a lens flare, and it is so perfectly recreated.
Mm-hmm.
It's at a point where even though it's AI and someone's saying you can still argue that it's not AI. This
Yeah.
is it's real.
Yeah. I
Someone said,
mean, some of them are hard to tell. Like,
yeah.
and
I've seen
that
someone
is
say
the goal.
RIP photography because
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's going to take a dent into stock photography. Um, you know,
yeah,
and then even people can like train those models with their own images. So instead of doing photo shoots, and people have already been doing it, but it's just that the ones that people have been doing are like quite obviously AI. But now that the goal for these AI things is just to push for more and more realism, it's not enough to be able to generate an image. It's to now like generate an image that you can confuse for an actual photo. And I
right.
don't know, like beyond maybe disposable graphics and stock photography, um, I can see more negative outcomes or uses than positive ones. And then also just how we like perceive images and trust the images that we see. It's going to take a lot of like training wheels on us, the general public, in how we now look at whatever content comes up on the web.
Yeah, it's gonna create a world of confusion, and you have to second guess, triple guess everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it also there's a bit of an upside that I think could happen, but I feel I understand how capitalist society works, so this might not be as much of an optimistic outlook as I would like for it to be, in the sense that news sources that could be trusted can now be even more hinged upon for accurate information. So think about how you just see a random picture online now because everybody is a potential newscaster because everyone's tweeting their stream of consciousness, right? So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's essentially a news anchor right now. However, if you're like looking at the Associated Press or you're looking at something that PBS, NPR, you can look at a photo and be like, okay, they've done their homework, and you can 80%, 85% trust that it's okay because it can never really give 100%. So I think in that sense, I'm optimistic that some more trustworthy news outlets can become, places of, refuge maybe.
I think maybe what would then happen is we would basically some people will basically carve out corners of the web, and they might be relatively small, but corners of the web where they'll just say, you know what, flat out no AI. So if
Yeah.
it's a news, outfit, for instance, and that news outfit has a no AI stance,
Right.
then you can, of course, there's also the possibility that an institution can claim no AI and they're lying. But
Yep.
in this ideal hypothetical scenario, you can then go to that news outlet and say, okay, since I know that these guys have a no AI, 100% no AI stance, then if I see a photo from there, then I can trust that it's, real.
Yeah. All right. So it's one of those things, trying to figure out what's real and what's not. But something that's actually real and happening in real time is NVIDIA is like shaking in their boots. You know why? because Google's chips are looking very attractive, right? Meta wants some of that action. OpenAI wants some of that action.
I mean, it's the same chips that they're using to train the Gemini 3 that we just talked about. So
Yeah.
um, I find it like amazing because the load, right, the processing power and processing load that we all thought AI needed, which was what gave Nvidia the advantage, in pushing out these like GPUs. Like they were just releasing these updated GPUs and then doing like ASICs and all that. ASIC just means what's full meaning of ASIC? Basically, a type of GPU or processor that is specified for a single process.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so them doing that, and then Google coming out and saying, "Hey, the chips that we made for smartphones, we tweaked it, we updated it, we did whatever magic we did, and then now we can use that for AI. You know, it's yeah, and then it will probably come in at a lower cost to NVIDIA GPUs. So, like that's huge offer or temptation for the other AI companies. I think NVIDIA's stock even took a dip after that news.
Yep, it did. And they had to put out a tweet trying to justify that our chips are the best in the world and things. So it's kind of one of those things trying to, solidify their positioning. But I think that begs the question though, that what are some of the companies in the world that are very, very vertically integrated in the entire AI pipeline and are positioned to solidify their position, well, in at the top of the market board, right, or the leaderboard of the market? Because I think Google is that one company, and then maybe Apple, because they control the hardware and software stack all the way to the top. And if you're looking at, how they optimize their individual devices to do exactly what they needed to do, and sure, people can clown on Apple with Apple Intelligence, but if you think about it, the AI is there. It's seamless. It's not in your face. It's not a chatbot. It's something that will continue to improve over time. I'm trying to think. Besides Google and Apple, are you thinking of anybody else who's actually that deeply integrated?
Um, so I don't even think Apple is all that vertically integrated because they still use ChatGPT fallback. Um,
ChatGPT, and I think recently they have talks of also using Gemini in ChatGPT. I'm sorry, in Siri in 2026.
so they still have like a fallback dependency on third-party AI companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Google is the most vertically integrated AI company, but again, the tech industry has moved into this. Everybody wants to create a silo. Everybody wants to create a walled garden. Everyone
Some
wants
kind
to
of
create
ecosystem. Yeah.
ecosystem, and lock you in. So, like, if they offer you one product that you like, then they just want to get you to use all of their associated products. And I don't think it's good. Of course, for financial profit reasons, it
Mm.
is, but for technological reasons and for more ethical reasons, I believe more in like this cross pollination of technology. Um, and so, you know, congratulating like Google on being fully vertically integrated. It's just, well, it's good for Google stock, I guess.
It is. And I think Google is one of those companies too that for the longest time, especially with AI, and let me know if you agree with me or not, they seem like they did so many things very well, but they didn't do one thing like outstandingly, like as just like excellent, right? But I think Nano Banana Pro kind of changed that. Even Nano Banana before Nano Banana Pro has been like one of the better image generation tools. But if you think
Mm-hmm.
about chatbot, people always default to GPT and Claude first. Think about
Yeah.
coding, people always default to Claude first, and then sure, people some users talk about Gemini, and but Codex with GPT came out, and then everybody's like pivoted, so it became a battle between Claude and GPT, even in coding. And so now it's one of those things like because I hear about Notebook LM, another Google product where they suck at marketing, was actually a really useful tool, right?
Yeah, it is.
So you think about all these tools and everything. So to your point about ecosystems, Google is kind of still struggling with that, right? The best of the ecosystem that they have right now is an open source operating system where everyone is like BYOD, bring your own device and then create like a different flavor of Android. And I think one of the second best will be maybe their Docs suite. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I think using Google Docs and Google Sheets, whether you're on iOS or Android, that's platform agnostic,
I
right?
don't think that's the second though. I think the second will be all the stuff that's associated with Gmail. I think Docs might even be like also linked to that, but Gmail basically is like the hub,
Yeah,
because your
would you call it
Gmail.
a suite though? Would you call it a suite of product? I know Gmail can stand by itself, but it just feels like it could be a suite.
Um, well, it's like almost everything is. I won't call it a suite, yeah, right? But I'll call it more like a hub. Like a lot of things plug into Gmail, right? So it's your Gmail address that you even use to sign into an Android device. It's your Gmail address that gives you a YouTube account. It's your Gmail address that you will use to sign into Docs. It's your Gmail address that you use to, do chatting or Teams
Much
or all
everything,
that. So yeah, so the Gmail account is like the central hub for,
right?
um, you know,
And let's not talk about their social media, right? Because I think YouTube kind of falls in that category because of the comment section. Um, but yeah, and it's also a streaming platform. So yeah, in that sense, right? Like I feel like the ecosystem is not fully formed in that you people don't use these things coherently. Like they can be used independent of each other.
yeah,
Versus other ecosystems where like one hardware device leads to another hardware device that works seamlessly with each other and a software product, vice versa.
yeah. So like the thing is, if you are going to compare Google's like ecosystem, the ecosystem spreads via software as
Hmm.
opposed to via hardware, right? I think Apple might actually be the only company whose ecosystem spreads via hardware. Even Facebook's ecosystem is hardware independent, apart from Oculus. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I know we've talked about Apple a lot, but they recently dropped a holiday ad that was stop motion puppetry,
yeah.
and it's just. I mean, they've had better ads throughout the years, but I'm not saying this is not good by any measure. It's actually really good. I really liked it, but it's just one of those things that it gives me joy to see artists being employed, especially
And
nowadays,
allowed to be artists.
and allowed to be artists, right? All these companies we talked about prior, we talked about Meta and OpenAI, Google. The bulk of their marketing throughout this 2025 has been here's our new AI thing that could replace an artist, right? Here's our new AI product that will completely replace the entire process of you creating your art. Meanwhile, Apple is like, oh, we're not only gonna hire this guy to make the new Apple TV logo with actual glass. I don't know if you saw the behind the scene.
Yeah, I saw that.
Um, but we're also going to create these this short film with people filming on an iPhone 17 Pro. I thought that was brilliant.
And puppets and furry animals and all that. I think Apple is trying to signal. Remember when I just said that some people will try to carve out this segment of the internet with like no AI. I think Apple is actually trying to signal um, their stance on AI with regards to art, because like if you remember some of Steve Jobs' early talks where he says at Apple they want to stand at the intersection of liberal arts and technology. So um, Apple has always had some level of respect for arts and creativity, and they want to basically. It seems like they're signaling that hey, even though we're a tech company, even though we have AI, the way we want to use and deploy AI in our products is not to subvert the effort and creativity and opportunities for artists. So they've demonstrated that. And you notice that with each of these ads, they didn't just like give us the ad, they gave us the BTS in order to
Right.
show us what went into making it.
So it was quite impressive. I enjoyed watching it, and it's a stark contrast to what Coca Cola has been doing for their holiday commercials.
Yeah, that was very disappointing. Um,
I know, right? Because they're a brand a lot of us associate with, especially I mean, Coca Cola is like part of my childhood as much as any other, memorabilia from like the 90s. So seeing them just like say, "Hey, we use tokens," and the ad was just riddled with a lot of crap. Like the bus was like an 18-wheeler. At some point, it was like a 10-wheeler. And it's like there was no consistency. It's like, yeah, whatever, just lump it in there.
Because like they typically had like really well made ads that
Yeah.
usually even come up in like in all these like marketing awards and marketing critiques and so for them to just like throw away that um, reputation for very good advertising, marketing, design, and all that, just like somebody sat down at a desk and typed something into a prompt and spat it out and said, "Hey, take." We are Coca Cola, so he might as well. Like that was very disappointing.
It was. I know you wouldn't go as far as saying maybe someone should get fired for that commercial, right?
Uh, yeah, I don't think so because I mean, well, it depends on who allowed it to come out. Like it's one thing for somebody to say, okay, let's do an AI ad. It's another thing for whoever is in charge of putting out marketing material to approve and say yes.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like a top leadership thing where they try to be edgy, type things. Like, yeah, let's do something people will talk about. Let's mess around with this AI thing.
That
But
could be it. Or maybe they were just trying to save money.
I don't know if Coca Cola is that desperate, strapped for cash though.
Ah, there's something that we didn't even mention. WB Wahala.
Warner
Warner
Brothers,
Bros. Yes, like
the Netflix potential
how
acquisition.
how is Warner Bros. Trying to sell? Like it's
Yeah.
boggling my mind. Did we talk about it on the previous episode?
No, we did not. But there's been a lot of news this past week, especially in past week and a half, about Netflix trying to lead a bid for Warner Brothers.
So it's not just that Netflix. Like remember, they were even acquired. They already been acquired by Discovery, or they
Discovery, yeah.
already merged with Discovery,
Warner
right?
Brothers Discovery, yes.
Yeah, and so now they're still looking for like a buyer. Like, and I'm like, Warner Bros. Is one of the biggest entertainment media franchises in the world. It's one of the big four, big five in the world, and they have some of the biggest, most marketable IPs with like huge fan bases, and I believe they should have the resources to even bring out and market and blow up new IP. So for them to want to like, it looks like they're even with all the news that's coming out, it begins to look like they're desperate to sell, and for them to be at that stage, it's like, what's really going on behind the scenes? Have you guys been mismanaging yourselves? Are you like I can't figure it out, honestly. I just can't figure out like what's going on. Like if someone had told me, you know, a couple years ago that Warner Bros would be in such a situation, I'd be like, nah, can't be. They're too big to fail. But hey, here we are.
Yeah, I heard there's a bidding deadline coming up soon, and it kind of, I don't know how it's gonna pan out, but usually when these things happen, it's as long as it's not Netflix. Honestly, I think I'll feel slightly better
Yeah,
because
I too.
Netflix has this way of I know Jim Cameron is gonna get into some trouble about this comment he made that Netflix films shouldn't be considered for Academy Awards because they barely play in theaters. And he went on and said
Ooh.
Netflix would release a film for like a week and a half, and then they submit it for the awards. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, keep it in theaters, keep people employed, let them work, right? Let them
Mm-hmm.
make a living off of the film in theaters, let people see the film and enjoy it. And the reason I think he's gonna get in trouble is because I don't know if Guillermo del Toro is a friend of his, but I'm sure they're associated. He recently dropped Frankenstein, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is apparently an amazing picture. And it's in theaters and streaming on Netflix at the same time. And it's one of those things like even F1 that Apple dropped hasn't still dropped on Apple TV Plus. It's gonna be released in December. And so that was like a summer slash fall film with Brad Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where they leave it in theaters long enough, and I think that's what Jim Cameron is trying to fight for, where you leave the film in theaters, it has legs, people go in theaters and see it before you should be considered for Academy. So it says if Netflix should be allowed to actually buy something like Warner Brothers, like it's just gonna mess up the whole thing. Like films are just gonna go straight to streaming, you know.
Well, it could go the other way, right? It could be that Netflix buying Warner Brothers, which is something I still do not want. It just makes things a little too consolidated. But Netflix buying Warner Brothers might make Warner Brothers their basically distribution and media company for theater release, right? And then they keep the Netflix stuff inside of Netflix.
I mean, that sounds
The
like an ideal scenario.
but the thing is, Netflix model is streaming, right? So James Cameron's critique that they don't it's almost like he's forgetting that they are a streaming first platform.
I think Netflix is a tech company. That's what people, I would tell people it's a tech company that just
Yeah,
so happens to be in
exactly.
the studio business, right? It's a publicly traded tech company. And if they acquire Warner Brothers and the shareholders come knocking because, hey, you put 25 films in the theaters this year, only two of them made money, Netflix is never going to put a movie in the theater anymore. so,
hmm hmm
so we can
but
only
the thing
go ahead.
about Netflix being a tech company is that Netflix is a tech company that has to coexist as a media company because in the business that they're in, which is like making a streaming platform, it's replicable, right? I mean, now Disney has a streaming platform, Warner Bros. Has a streaming platform, Paramount has a streaming platform, everybody has a streaming platform. So it's replicable. So for them, the moat, and they realize this early, the moat is the content, right? So they have to coexist as a media company. And like I think because the old rules for movie submission to the Academy Awards is that it has to show in theaters, and I also love the culture around like seeing movies in theaters and all that. But we also have to remember that hey, people have to feel like they're getting their money's worth when they go to the theaters, and it's not every movie, it's not every like 90 minutes, 2 hour piece of film that is worth getting dressed, leaving your house, going to the cinema to sit down and watch, right? Some of these films are sit down and watch on your TV at home or sit and watch on your, mobile device or whatever. So just because that is, I don't think we should now like say, oh, that should be the deciding line of whether a movie qualifies for the merit of an Oscar award. If what the Oscar awards are judging is like artistic merit and all that, and impact and all that.
That's fair. And I should also mention that the Jim Cameron quote, I saw it on Twitter,
Mm,
and I didn't actually see a video of him saying that. So
okay.
I hope I didn't just get him in trouble for saying something he didn't say. Maybe that was
Uh-huh.
some AI. Maybe that was some AI generated Jim Cameron.
Right. But
Yeah, something. Let's talk about something that's a little bit more heartbreaking. The Hong Kong fire. It's one of those things that could have just gone under the radar
mhm.
because there's just always so much happening. Like people talk about, Trump immigration, which we're going to talk about, but there's like fire in like these high-rise buildings, and there's some neighboring construction, and the death toll keeps rising. It's just I saw it, and someone described it as like Grenfell for Hong Kong because it was really that bad.
Mm.
If people don't remember, Grenfell was like this horrible fire in the UK that happened. It's like there was a lot of casualties, and it's a high rise fire as well. It's sad times, but I'm thankful that people are already out there on grounds trying to help with support and firefighting and donations from corporations, including Apple. I saw Tim Cook tweet about it, and which is pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they resolve it very quickly. I hope the casualties stay at a minimum. I hope for comfort for all the people who have been affected or who have lost loved ones, and a speedy recovery. I think when you sent the article, I was looking at it and it was like, oh, something about them being careless and there being like forewarnings as to some safety stuff.
Right.
And I was kind of surprised because I was like, our East Asians, they seem to be like, they are not that careless, at least the kind of reputation, or impression we have of them. But they're human, so some of these things
Right.
will happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there had been some reports from the locals about, just reporting these people to authorities that they are not meeting those safety standards. And, they said, hey, some of this the material, the flame retardant, supposedly mesh that you're supposed to have on site. They questioned the quality of those things. They said people were smoking, and it's just like a lot of foreboding, which
Mm.
unfortunately in the fire ended up still happening. And I think they're getting close to like 100 casualties now, which is just
Sad.
I think the last number I saw, okay, it's actually more than that. I think 128 deaths. Dark. No. Yes, Donald Trump is going to be clamping down on immigration yet again. I feel like that's his whole thing. Like if he doesn't talk about immigration once a quarter, I feel like he's going to get malaria.
Wait first, even before we even get to these guys, from one tragedy to the other, or would I call it a tragedy? The schoolgirls that were abducted in Kebbi,
Yes.
was it Kebbi or Kwara? Kebbi. Um, I mean, what did you think about it? Like, cause man, we talked about some of the stuff that was happening when Trump declared Nigeria a country of particular interest, and the
Yes.
whole Muslims or extremists and jihadists and domestic terrorists killing Christians and Christian communities and churches and all that in Nigeria. And then we have this whole kidnap and rescue situation. I don't know, like, did you see the news? What did you think about it?
My takeaway initially when I heard that the girls have been returned was initial, yes, thank goodness,
Mm-hmm.
finally. And then it was, all right, so who did it? Where are they? What are they in trouble? Like, are they in prison? Are they jailed behind bars, or are they back in the wild waiting for their next opportunity to kidnap more students? Right?
Did you
And
catch
that's
anybody?
did you catch anybody? Like, what is going on here? And it usually makes me. And if you look at the history of these kinds of cases, it's always the same thing where they either get a slap on the wrist, or in some cases they even get some kind of scholarship, or they're like, oh, let's reintegrate them into society, and then it's like, oh, they get broke again, kidnap again. It's like a cycle. And so that was my major concern. Like you can do the whole "we rescue them" parade and announce it to the world, but what exactly are you doing about the problem? What are you doing about the cancer? Are you actually making sure this doesn't happen again? Which I don't think they are. It makes me question not just the motives of the people doing these things, but like who's backing them, and what do they know that we don't?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so easy for these people to get away with such a heinous crime, kidnapping
Mm-hmm.
people? There were some people who were like in literal like 4 or 5 year olds that were kidnapped recently too. I'm like, why are you kidnapping a freaking baby? Because what are you gonna do? Are you trying to get ransom for a
Don't,
4 year old?
hmm. Getting ransom is the most benign thing we can imagine that they would want to kidnap a girl child for. Let's not even go beyond that. Um, I think this whole thing was kind of contrived. And again, of course, I don't want to get in trouble for libel or anything, but um, it's just hella suspicious. And any Nigerian citizen has a lot of reason to be suspicious of the Nigerian government, especially this administration, because they haven't put their best foot forward, especially regards the security of life and property with this whole issue of, extremist domestic terrorism and all that. And
Yes.
so for them to kidnap someone, kidnap a bunch of girls and then release them in such short order, the question now becomes, what has been happening all these years when there have been all these kidnappings and nobody was rescuing them? Is it that you are pretending not to have heard? Is it that you're now just trying to save face or do eye service because the international community, or because there's an online outcry of like what's going on? So to me, this particular scenario seems pretty contrived. And until we know a bit more, until there's some level of justice done, and until we can say, okay, this thing has actually reduced to has been eradicated completely, I'm not going to like hold my breath or have any confidence in the Nigerian government's ability to do what is right about this thing. I do hope that those communities and those people, stay safe to whatever extent is possible. But yeah, this particular scenario just leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, the government is notorious for being inept. And we talked about this earlier before the call started about how the average Nigerian is their own local government, right? So they
Hmm.
expect you to provide your own electricity, your water, your roads, transportation, and at this point, your own security, which is disheartening. But anyway, let's just hope there's more that comes out of this and not just a slap on the wrist for these people.
Yeah.
And back to Trump. I know he made a lot of noise about, country of particular concern in Nigeria, but what is in the news for this week? Is crackdown on immigration. And
That was basically his Thanksgiving message to Americans. I'm like,
yeah,
what kind of Thanksgiving greeting is that?
you saw the lengthy tweet.
I saw it, I skimmed. I was just like, okay, Baba, you're ranting about immigration. Like that's his platform actually. It was one of his key campaign things.
Yeah,
And again, I'm too far removed from the issue. There's probably something he's seeing that other people aren't, that's making the immigration thing really like a sore spot, and maybe some other people who are also supporting his outcry against it, that's actually like causing or making this thing a real sore spot. And it could also be maybe like misguided or like a misattribution, or the sort of thing where you're seeing a trend of immigration, but you are making it a bigger thing than it is. And it's also possible that the things that he's complaining about, maybe that is leading to loss of jobs, is leading to increase in crime, is leading to a misallocation of benefits. It could also be possible that he's right on all counts. Who's to know? But I think the manner in which he said it just came out. Again, like at this point, I don't think anyone should be shocked or surprised or clutching their pearls when Trump goes on any of these tirades. To me, it's par for the course for him.
yeah.
But, I mean, at least start your Thanksgiving message with something more pleasant as opposed to.
I agree 100%. We talked about how one of the key jobs of a leader is uniting people. And you have Thanksgiving, which is a holiday to be thankful for, and you go on this tirade about how he talks about how it's the patriots that are allowing the country to be divided, disrupted. I'm like, bro, chill. Like, let's get some turkey first, okay?
Right?
Let's start. Let's have a real conversation here. But he just went on and on. It's like this lengthy back and forth is, whew, well, so much for being the leader of the free world.
And the other thing I must add is that, see, I believe in countries being in control of their own sovereignty and all that. So yes, for even if you want to take out whatever historical argument there is for, who has claim to the region we now know as the United States of America, whatever that is, that one is a long story. We are not going to get into that. But it's you people's country. Let me just put it like that, right? So yes, you do not want to reduce immigration, or you don't want immigrants, you don't want people from third world, you don't want people from certain parts of the world in your country. Fine. But as you are making that argument, as you are making that statement, as you are making that declaration, they should not be oblivious to the fact that the United States of America and the West in general have their hooks in a lot of these third world countries. And the hooks they have in many third world countries, are making things unpleasant for the citizens and the natives of those countries, which then makes those people want to desire to leave those countries for the West. So as you are saying, oh, these people go back to your country, just remember that the things that you are doing, and again, I'm not one of those people who wants to believe that, oh, everything that's wrong with the third world is because of what the West has done or whatever. No. But they should be conscious of, they should not be hypocrites, basically. They should be conscious of what role they have played and are playing in the stagnation or underdevelopment of many parts of developing countries, and then they should remove their hand. They should remove their hand. So if it is, putting military bases, if it is subverting elections, if it
Mm.
is, policies, exploitative loans, like all those things, remove your hand so that you can have like a solid moral pedestal to stand on when you want to say, oh, these people from those countries shouldn't enter your own country.
This is kind of what's happening with in Francophone West Africa, right?
Yeah,
Because of the entrenched French influence, you see a lot of military coups in in some of those countries, and even countries that don't have military coups, they're kind of like letting the French government know, just take your military bases out of here, just move, just go home. All right,
just leave us alone.
leave us be, right? And yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it for today. Until next time, this has been Backyard Conversations. Thank you to everyone for listening. You know where to find us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube now because there's no more Google Podcasts. Thank you, Google. And everywhere else, Deezer, Amazon Podcasts, we're everywhere.
every
Thank you for
every
this.
podcast app.
Literally everywhere. And thank you for leaving us those awesome five-star reviews. We really appreciate it. And yeah, until next time, it's Backyard
Yep.
Conversations.